Welcome back, everybody. This is Amit. This will introduce yourself, Dominic.
Kaboom!
This idiot. And that's Dominic. And we're back, and now we've got a whole new thing going on. We're still doing this show remote. Dominic is in the Boca Raton office, and Amit is here in the Miami studio, i.e. apartment. And for some reason, Dominic decided to put on another giant sweatshirt in hot, sunny Miami, but you do you. And again, nothing matches. You're wearing a University of Miami sweatshirt and a Pittsburgh hat, primarily because of color coordination, I assume, right? One more time. Okay, now I can't hear you, Doug. No joke. Talk.
I am talking.
There you go. He's back again. Okay, he's back. He's back.
All right,
We had a little technical difficulties.
It's in my soul to rock that gold.
Wow.
Introduce our guest. Stop talking. Introduce
All right.
guest.
And today we've got our guest coming to us from horrible San Francisco. And I say that loosely because I'm not a fan, but he loves it. Marc Philobos. You can say hello, Mark.
What's going on? I didn't know whether. Hey, fellas. How we doing?
Good. So Mark and I think Mark has been mentioned on the show before. Mark is my intro to the Egyptian culture by way of New Jersey. When he and I went to high school together, they're back in the late 90s or mid 90s, and still friends. Go figure. He is now living in San Francisco and now working in the weed space, which is a space that I'm ignorant about, and we're going to find out some more about that today. Dominic has some interest in this space, just in general, just seeing how things are growing, etc. No pun intended. And so we wanted to chat with Mark, and obviously, Mark has been somebody who's actually listened to the show, which is pretty awesome. So let's start there. What's going on, Mark? What's the weather like in beautiful San Francisco?
Contrary to what you say, it's actually sunny here today. Amit has this thing with the sun out here, but every time I go to LA to see that guy, it's always foggy and cloudy.
Dude, San Francisco, you go, it's like it's 70 degrees, and you turn the block and it's 50 degrees, and they go, oh, microclimates. F that, man. It's just garbage weather. I got to carry around my jacket everywhere just in case. There's no actual climate.
It's a great place to live.
So another thing too, right? So obviously we've had a couple guests on in the past, and as those of you who have listened to us know that we are fairly free-flowing in our content and the way we kind of discuss stuff, etc. Mark was nice enough to send us, in essence, a resume about things that he has done, which is great, by the way, because I ain't gonna lie to you, man, we did zero research. But again, I know Mark, so it's easy. Dominic was like, wow, this dude's done a bunch. Now, mind you, it makes you seem a lot smarter than I know you are, but still, man, well done.
Yeah, it's a matter of just putting the blindfolds on people, making them think you are something you're not.
So hold up. All right. So we're going to go chat about the weed space and stuff, but
Sure.
Just in the transition there. So Mark, as I mentioned, Mark and I went to high school together. His parents are Egyptian. He's first generation American like myself. Both his parents came over from Egypt. He lived down the street from me in Edison, New Jersey, and we'll get into some of that stuff as well. But the career path has also been all over the place, meaning he worked for StubHub for a period of time, and obviously for those of you who know StubHub as well, so that's sports oriented, et cetera, but that's, again, digital and online and so on and so forth in the e-commerce space. Worked for the Jets for a period of time. I guess everybody's got to hustle. And then he went on to work again back in the e-commerce space again, and then did a bunch of other stuff, and now he is in the weed space, actually working for the Apothecarium.
There
Yes.
you go.
Boom.
Well, yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
School me. What the hell is it?
Yeah, so we were acquired by Terrascend in June of 2019, which is a publicly traded Canadian company. Anyway, they acquired a California asset, which was the Apothecarium, State Flower, and Valhalla Confections. State Flower they purchased a little bit later on, or in the process of acquiring. With that being said, Apothecarium is a group of dispensaries. We have 5 here in California, 3 in San Francisco, 1 in Berkeley, California, and 1 in Capitola, which is in the Santa Cruz area. State Flower is a cultivation, about 20,000 square feet, indoor, and about 10,000 square feet of that is canopy. And then Valhalla Confections is our edibles manufacturing facility, which is based in Santa Rosa. State Flower, by the way, it's the largest cultivation in San Francisco. So that's, for now, that's something that we get to tout, is that we are the largest cultivation in San Francisco. And it's still very boutique, right? There's so many groups that grow so much more flower, but we're a very boutique indoor hydro, and we're producing roughly 330 to 350 pounds of flower a month.
Did you know anything about this space before you got into it?
I knew zero. Actually, when I was getting interviewed, I'm like, "Do you guys want somebody that knows nothing about cannabis?" Just because, it's interesting enough, not to segue too far off, but cannabis growing up on the East Coast, especially with a conservative family, had a certain stigma to it, right? And so as I started to, you get a little bit older, you start doing your own research, and you kind of look at how...
And you start smoking more.
Well, yeah.
Research, sorry.
Research. And then you start looking kind of just at how marijuana or cannabis was, wrongly put into this war against drugs campaign. Anyway, so...
Hold on, but on that note, before you progress, did your parents, so were your parents anti this situation, or family? Were they like, whoa, weed, Mark? I mean...
Yeah, in the beginning, I think my mom was a little bit taken aback by it in the beginning. She was a little bit, she was, was just like, what are you going to tell people? Kind of.
His mom actually sounds like that, dude. It's crazy. His mom literally sounds like that.
And I was like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell people, I was like, well, look, you have two choices. You can tell them what I do, or you can tell them that I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep if you just want to avoid any conversation. And she's like, well, what are you going to say? I'm like, I'm going to tell them exactly what I do. And I think just over time and trying to have intelligent discussions about it, it's starting to loosen up a bit, right? I think we have a long way to go in terms of the education of cannabis and what it can do for people from a medicinal standpoint, how it could help against the opioid epidemic that we currently have. And then, the recreational side. I don't think that within moderation, I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying and consuming a natural plant. So, I just think there's a lot of and there's so much that still hasn't been explored. And, I'm in California, which is kind of, in my opinion, right now, it has a great culture here, obviously from years past. And there's so much innovation and just thought process, and so much innovation and research happening here that I'm hoping as the country starts to legalize, California starts to kind of bring the rest of the country along with it.
So you alluded to no, it's great. You alluded to the war on drugs, which I want to get into, but I want to keep it a little lighthearted for now because
sure.
I can go heavy-handed on that.
Yeah, and just really quick, my specific role within the company is I head up wholesale sales on the West Coast, basically California for right now. So, for example, State Flower and Valhalla, I run the basically selling to dispensaries outside of our own dispensaries.
So, and how does it work with your company against California in general? You guys are fully integrated.
So so it's cannabis in California. Every state is different, but California and Nevada, which the two I know most about, is very much like the alcohol space, where you have a brand, a distributor, and then the retailer at the end. And a cannabis brand can only sell to a retailer, which is either a non-storefront retailer, which is a delivery service out here, or a brick and mortar service. So obviously, unless you have a retailer license, you cannot sell product outside of that.
Okay. And you mentioned about education to consumers. Yeah. I'm flabbergasted. It seems it's been remarkably drastic over the last few years about the image and the preconceived notions we have about marijuana in general. You mentioned it's very true. We have a long way to go, but I'm just thinking even 10 years ago, like this where we're at now, and I was ignorant, would have seemed inconceivable, quite frankly, across the country.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned it. Just like I talk, because I'm here in California and have access to so many interesting people. I talk to people who are kind of like considered, OGs in the space, what you call the 215 days.
What do you call the what?
215 days.
What does that mean?
It's basically before recreation.
I mean, what's 215 though?
Hard to get into
right
now, but
that means he doesn't know. No, I'm playing. I'm joking.
Essentially, obviously, where things were a bit more medicinal, you didn't really have brands at the time, and I think around a lot of them tell me around 2013, 2012 is when they started to realize that legalization in California is actually going to become a thing, and that happened, I believe, January 1st of 2018 is when California became fully recreational and legalized.
But we still have the same issues, right? Meaning some of the issues that existed in Colorado and stuff like that still exist by way of the cash aspect. Like it's still not a federal, like the money that comes in is still a pain in the ass to put in banks and to do stuff with. I mean, it's...
Are you guys using credit unions and not using credit cards and stuff? Or what are you...
So so we are, I think we're a pretty sophisticated group out here. So we've been able to figure out banking, which we've been, but a lot of groups haven't figured out banking and still manage a lot of cash, which obviously adds an element of some security issues here and there, right? So I think that's going to start loosening too. I really think these next few years with the Democrats being in control, I think will be important to see what they can push through with legalization and banking. I mean, banking is so important, and I'm really confused as to why a lot of these banks don't do it. Is it's not federally legal. We're not going to touch it until the government makes a decision on a federal level. So
it's because I see that part and I find it very interesting only because now we've got these ETC, EFC situations going on and everybody's messing with Ethereum and stuff like that. But you guys don't dabble in that space at all yet, right? As far as, and I don't mean you guys specifically, I mean the industry.
Yeah, I've done very little research on the crypto piece, but there are a few out there that are trying to create cryptos for the cannabis industry.
I mean, that may be a cool way around it to kind of bring in a bunch of things together. Again, me knowing nothing about the space in general, but I just think it's with government being government and with the popularity growing state to state to state, it's almost an easy way to be like, F you government and get away with not get away with, but do what you want to do and kind of thrive and not have some of the risks security wise and otherwise, which again, what does that do? That forces the government hand because they want money and, the game changes, but it's almost like forcing their hand versus letting them come to terms with this over time, which when they come to terms with shit, it's always way late anyway.
Yeah. I think we need to work closely with government because we want to start again. I think the education piece is, the money piece is one thing, and I think you have an education piece that we really need. I mean, I forgot who the Republican congressman or senator was that was talking about marijuana killing people and all these things. You can't overdose on marijuana. You'll fall asleep before you ever do. So, there's just so much education that needs to happen, and we need to do it in a proper way. I mean, look, right? Everybody talks about their college experience, and I did this and I did that. What I've been fortunate enough here for myself is like really understanding how to dose yourself properly, talking to the right experts. The one thing that I will say, our dispensary group, the Apothecarium, I think they do a really good job. They've made their business based around really educating consumers when they come in, not just being like, what do you want? It's not like just super transactional. It's not like come in, I'm going to try to sell you as much as I can and then get out. It's more like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? As if they want that sort of a consultation. So that's starting to happen too, is that we have consultations. The patient consultant will discuss with them, is it ailments, is it for recreation, and start working with them on what works best for them. Because even if you're smoking, some strains will work great for you and some strains won't. And that's just a matter of your body composition and your DNA.
Like, I'm not somebody who, like, I don't dabble personally. I know a lot of people who dabble in the edibles. And by the way, I don't dabble only because man, I don't need another vice. That's literally what it is. I was like, there's enough crap that I already get into that if I dabble in that space, it's going to cause me some more, just another thing to upkeep to end. And I don't, well, actually, is it, and I don't even know, what's Florida like? Is Florida is legal? Like what's the difference by way? So if I wanted to dabble in the space, what could I do? Oh, so I got to get a license and
medical.
Shit? Okay.
Yeah.
So I got to go find somebody
medical.
in some, I mean, are these legit doctors I got to find, or I got to go to some shady place to get a card?
No, you can go online and there's legit.
Okay, yeah, nothing shady about
that. I'll tell you. I'll tell you a funny story. You read the rules, all the regulations you're supposed to, requirements you're supposed to have, and I have a lot of stuff. I've had 7 concussions, surgery on both knees, the police incidents. I had all this stuff to talk about. Right? And I get there, and I start telling the doctor, and he says, within 10 seconds, I start with my knee. He says, how bad is the pain? I say, it's not that bad, but it's bad. Okay, you're good. And I froze. And I said, wait, what do you mean? I just sat in the car, like, preparing. No, I have more to talk about. No, and then I'm waiting, and I'm interviewing a girl, and I don't know what she says, right? I can't hear her, but I just hear him say, just say anxiety. That's it. Like he's telling her.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's an interesting space. And what other questions do you guys have? What road do you want to go down here?
I mean, do you have anything lighthearted before I go down that dark path?
Well, I mean, I was going to go, okay, before we go too dark, this is literally from my ignorance in the business side of things, right? So you're in the space. I don't know who runs the space in general. So some of the path that Dom's going to touch on, I'm sure relates to this as well. But, and you may not even know these stats, by the way, but in general, right? So from stuff that I know as an ignorant person, and whether it's watching documentaries or whether it's watching news reports, et cetera, via, whether it's Vice or so on and so forth, like quote unquote credible sources, it's still very, it's still very much the wealthy or the large corporations or whatever who've been able to truly benefit from a lot of this because of the cost of getting in, because of the various regulations and rules and so on and so forth. It's still been, there's a lot of companies out there doing this, but there is an overall, there's somebody with money in the back end who either owns a bunch of these things or somebody in the back end who's levying the government to do certain things, but it's not really a simple, hey, we the people now get to make some money in the marijuana game. Like, it's not that cut and dry. Like, there's a lot of regulations and red tape from what I understand. So is it just the big companies who kind of run the show, or are there, is a little man making anything? Can the little man make anything? Should people even get into the space if they got some extra cash? Like, is there too much red tape?
It's a very regulated industry, and I think that's obviously for a reason, right? I think a lot of people want to see this thing work. So is there a lot of regulation? Yes, and it's limited depending on the state. For example, I think Colorado was pretty open, but depending on the state, you're limited in the number of licenses for a dispensary that you can hand out. There's generally an application process that you have to go through. So it's not, I know from just seeing folks in this state go through it, it takes a lot to get one. And obviously you have to be able to read through the regulation, understand them, attorney fees. So there is, quite a bit that you have to be able to start one of these businesses. You can't, but then there are others who are able to obviously there's tons of mom and pops. I mean, California is super ingrained. This was all kind of mom and pops. I think what was interesting is a lot of these groups, before legalization, everybody's in their own little bubble and didn't talk to each other or say what they did. And then all of a sudden legalization comes, and now these people can talk to each other and learn more from each other. So I think you're starting to see things kind of loosen up a bit in terms of like communication. But yeah, is it an easy industry to get into? Absolutely not. It's extremely regulated. You have to know all the rules. You don't want the government, those state departments coming after you and dinging you or taking away your license. So yeah, it's a very regulated space, but I think they're doing that for a reason. And I think as people start to get more comfortable and as more states legalize, those regulations will hopefully loosen up.
All right, Dom, bring us down.
War on drugs. Kaboom.
You got a question there?
No, I feel like that we could go on for hours about this. The really effed up situation where, things are more progressive now, obviously. We're talking about educating, the masses in general, the stereotypes, our parents, things of that nature. I would say specifically, it sounds like your parents, Mark, and I think my parents to some extent, your mom, the war on drugs and what it's done, and how we're not changing things retroactively. We look at, you mentioned the opioid crisis, and we've addressed that differently than what we've done with a non-problematic drug per se. Like you mentioned, you can't OD on marijuana, right? It's like the nicest of the drugs, if you want to put it in a kiddie fashion. I mean, we talk about the billions we spend still to this day every year on the war on drugs, and overwhelmingly so on marijuana. The ACLU had a stat, I can never say that, ACLU had a stat that between 2001 and 2010, there were over 8 million marijuana arrests. And the majority, almost 90%, was for simple possession, not distribution, not some big drug dealer, literally possession for personal use. People being arrested. And guess what? Overwhelmingly, disproportionately so, non-white, predominantly black, almost 4 times as much, when drug use amongst races is constant. It's been proven so. We all like marijuana. It is what it is. Just my rant about what that does, how it affects our community. Now that we have states opening up and we're creating jobs and industries and revenue, we are still to this day, while this is happening, affecting people directly and then affecting the economy overall. I mean, we have dire consequences. I wrote down a few things that it could do. Is, getting arrested simply for marijuana possession. What can they do? They can affect future employment opportunities, housing opportunities, child custody determination. I never thought about that. Imagine your parents in a court battle and, the judge brings up, well, you've been arrested for marijuana and you have, it's a bad influence, things of that nature. It can affect immigration status. Think about that as a first generation American yourself, Mark. Had something happened in the past with your parents and something like this, you wouldn't be here. And that's happening now. Kind of my long-winded rant about what we're doing. And I'm wondering, what states can potentially do with the revenue they're generating to, right this wrong, kind of a thing. It's my rant, no real question. Just my usual rant I go on about this stuff.
Yeah, so California has an equity program, and unfortunately, I'm not super well versed in it, so I probably should have been for this call.
If only you knew that we were having a call about race and weed, but okay, no worries.
But California, for example, has instituted an equity program, so that helps minorities, people of color, to acquire licenses and start businesses. So I believe, for example,
I had no idea. That's great.
Oakland has an equity program. I think it's city by city, but there are equity programs out there to try and help. Obviously, I think, as you said, I mean, we need more programs for minorities and for people of color to start, to have opportunities to build out businesses, especially marijuana, especially considering that, like, a lot of the war on drugs was based off of incarcerating people of color and minorities, right? Yeah. So, I think we're at the start of it, and I'm hoping that there will be more opportunities for this segment of the population to build businesses. There's also the Last Prisoner Project, if you know what that is. That's a nonprofit organization that's trying to help in terms of decriminalization, and then also getting working to help get people out of jail. So
I was unaware. I'm definitely gonna look into it.
So check out the Last Prisoner Project. I think that's a good one. Those are some of the organizations that are trying to right the wrong that marijuana has gone through for a considerable period of time.
Yeah, because unfortunately, a lot of these, even when we're making these progressive laws and moving forward, a lot of them aren't applied retroactively.
Yeah.
And that has extreme adverse effects. And I like that you mentioned the grants and programs to help minorities, because my understanding is it's less than 1% of owners in this industry, whether what the business is, from distribution to growing to anything to being a retailer, are minorities themselves, when especially they've been adversely affected by the war on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a small number compared to the percentage of the population that consumes, but my hope is that with these programs and education, that more minorities will get involved, and I think we'll start to see that happen. I would definitely check out the Last Prisoner Project. There's a lot of groups that connect with them that are trying to help. And by the way, it's not just for minorities. It's all groups, all people that
anyway who's been affected.
That's been affected.
And that also happens predominantly to the poor, regardless of race.
Right.
It's the war on drugs has been an attack on poor people as well. You guys see? I didn't really dig into it, so I don't know much. Did you guys see the quote unquote controversy in the Biden administration last week regarding the staffers who were officially fired, and others were reprimanded and forced to work from home temporarily? Did you guys see that?
No, school me.
Yeah.
So evidently there was some sort of, I don't know if it was a questionnaire or an in-person interview where they asked people about their previous marijuana use, and a bunch of people admitted to it, and 5 staffers wound up being fired. Now they're saying that there were other circumstances which led to those firing, but a bunch of other staffers were told to work from home temporarily while they investigate further and determine things. Which
hold up, they were already employed and then were let go from employment because of a previous situation that they had done prior to employment.
Yeah.
Is that even legal?
No,
it was not a murder.
No, they may have done it. They may have. I'm guessing based on the odds, some of it was done while employed.
So you're saying to me,
they admitted to use.
I guess this goes back to the whole federal situation of like the federal versus state aspects.
Because it is a federal. Exactly. It's a Biden administration. That's a federal. Yeah.
But then, okay, so then hold up. But now, if you don't fire them, and if it's illegal in the federal law, right, federal situation, and you reprimand them without firing them, then you also set a pretty garbage precedent as well. You almost either have to change the rule, or you've got to stand up by the, or you've got to.
No, but remember, they didn't test. That's different. It's not like your job. I understand the company has things. They didn't test positive and fail a test. They said in the past we stole marijuana, like previous presidents have admitted.
Yeah, but as we saw with your boy Trump, presidents can kind of get away with a lot of stuff. But when you're talking about, if I'm working for the federal government and the federal government says you cannot smoke marijuana because it is illegal, and I do such thing, now again, somebody should really test you to see if you actually are. You know what I'm saying? Like this is one of the letter. Have. Sorry. So
Kamala, I believe Kamala said she did also. Did she get fired?
Again, we've established that not everybody's the same. Kamala and Joe Biden are not the same. We've established this, right? If anybody's established this, it's Trump. We are not all the same, so no, right? And if you think you're the same as them, then that's cute. You're not. If it's just the way the world works, right? Some people have a higher station than others, and it is the reality of the world we live in. But I just don't know how you can be federal. My point, it speaks to the hypocrisy we were talking about earlier, right? If the federal government's going to say you can't do X, Y, and Z, and the state government's like, yeah, do whatever you want. We're seeing it right now with COVID stuff as well, with our friends in Texas. We're like, hey, nah, F the mask. You have a good time. Be fine. Don't worry about COVID. Like, there's idiocy on many levels. But what I would assume this should do is reinforce the fact that they need to change the federal statutes as it relates to this. If they can't, then they cannot show favoritism either, because somebody else can get penalized for this in a different job. So you cannot show favoritism. You got to change the rules, and they can change the rules. So to your point,
you would get
what?
Yeah, but
if you're in the federal government, if you're in a federal job and it's illegal to smoke or illegal to be a marijuana user in a federal job, my expectation is that you would lose your job. I would assume.
For past smoking?
But you keep saying past, but nobody knows what the past is. You said some of them could be doing it right now, or could have done it in the recent past.
But that's the thing. They asked them in the past, have you used marijuana? Google it. Yeah, what happened in the past? 10 years ago.
I mean, again, so there's got to be statute of limitations. I get you there, right? But I'm saying you cannot show favoritism. You got to change the rules.
No, this actually did change the rules. That's what they're saying. Only they should have fired more. That's the crazy thing.
Okay, no, that's my
even
point.
Under your poison, even under no. What I'm saying is they changed the rules and this happened. They were saying the rules were worse.
Okay, that's even worse.
It's a wild dynamic. So so under your boy, who you've already mentioned 3 times on this episode, which is
going for the record.
There was a Trump reference.
Yeah.
Going for the record.
Already. The rules were supposedly worse, and with previous administrations, Democrat, Republican, the rules were worse, but they weren't adhered to and enforced. Like all of a sudden, Biden administration comes in, makes the rules better, and says that's the reason only 5 people got fired, because they made the rules better. There should have been more that got fired, even though in other administrations, none do.
Because I'm going to go on a limb and say your boy Donnie Jr. is doing quite a bit more. And I don't mean has done. I mean is doing quite a bit more. And I'm making that complete blanket statement with no evidence at all. And that's purely just speculating.
You got Ben Rhodes, who Ben Rhodes. I have no idea if this is true. He tweeted, I have no idea if this is true, but I do know I served as a deputy national security advisor from 2009 to 2017, having acknowledged past marijuana use on my forms. It'd be wrong to punish people for something that is entirely normal, increasingly legal.
See, but this goes back to what Mark was saying. No, this goes back to what Mark was saying, where it was like, we need to change the way people perceive this, right? The way his mom and family perceive this versus the way they probably do. Hopefully they perceive it now, right? You're not ostracized, Mark, right? They're still welcoming you home for the holidays and stuff. You just have to sit in a corner and smoke by yourself.
Yeah. Don't talk to the kids.
No, you see what I'm saying, right?
No, I get that, but we're going the wrong direction. Mark's talking about going, we're going backwards with this.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how you keep moving.
That's the thing.
Like to me, it's just like the whole marijuana thing is very interesting because, and we said this in and I think I've said this more times than I should have ever said this, but this is the hypocrisy is so strong in this. So Mark brought up a Republican senator or somebody in the past who had come out saying that this was, I forgot, pardon my ignorance. You said something to the fact that he was talking negatively about marijuana and how it was,
Yeah, he was just talking about how it's killing people.
Yeah, killing people.
And I'm like, where's your we make these blanket statements now, and no research or anything, and it's more to just appease their base.
But that was the same thing, right? Where like this literally happened, and I'm trying to remember the senators' names, and I can't right now, but there were senators who've literally come out against this, saying, "Oh my God, this is the worst. To your point, it's killing our kids and blah 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 blah, gateway drug and all these things," and are now investing themselves in
John Boehner.
There you go. Bro. There you go, right? And now investing in these situations, right, or investing in these financial opportunities, which that's my point. It's so frigging, I mean, the hypocrisy is just, I mean, it's amazing. Like, it's not, and they're not even trying to be subtle about it. It's like, no, the hypocrisy is just, it's that crazy. So that's why to this point, like, I see these things beyond the lunacy associated with the fact that the way we penalize this situation. I only assume that this stuff is going to get, like, until these things will change when dollars and cents are affected. Plain and simple. These things will not change on any moral aspect. These things will totally change when there's revenue aspects or dollars associated with it. And right now, with all the programs they're trying to get in place, like I think Biden's got an infrastructure plan going in place. We already have the stuff related, the $1.9 trillion relief bill. We've got all these things, right? So you're going to start seeing a situation, in my view, you're going to start seeing these things where everybody's going to come back and say that we've got all the spending. How do we get the money back? And what Republicans are going to say is like Democrats want to tax everything. And the reality is you're going to have to increase taxes on something because we're just doling out dollars, right? So if I can increase my tax revenue, then maybe that's something to look at, i.e., the laws that existed, to Mark's point earlier, right, to make it a little more difficult for people to bank or whatever, those things are going to have to be rethought only because we need the money. Plain and simple. Morality be damned.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought up an interesting point. One of the things I think the states are going to need to do as legalization happens state by state, and then I think federal is coming as well within hopefully the next, within the next 4 to 10 years that federal legalization comes. I really think the states need to really review their tax structure as well. I just like so much tax is placed on every part of the process, and I'm hoping that they start to look at those and review them, because it obviously will hopefully be something that does generate revenue for the states and federally. But we also need to make it in a way that people that have been operating in the black are incentivized on the black market. I mean, are incentivized to want to.
I thought you meant
were
just cash positive is what I thought you meant.
No. Sorry, I'm in the black. I mean, operating in the black, I meant the black market.
Gotcha.
So like California, for example, California's black market is still bigger than the recreational market by a lot, right? And that's because I don't think the structure necessarily has been put in place to incentivize those groups to want to legalize. And so that to me says there's a disconnect, that you'd rather stay as an illegal form, right? You'd rather sell illegally, but obviously you're going to make more money. But like, where's the incentive to start bringing these folks, especially in a very, California's culture here with that, right? It's been so ingrained for so long because it's been medicinal for so long. At what point do we look at it and say, hey, we really need to start amending some of these rules and regulations, because we really need to incentivize these groups in the black market to come to our side.
I mean, all right. So then now, like you guys own the grow houses you mentioned earlier. You got the hydro and all that situation. You guys own the dispensaries as well.
So we're it's called vertical integration. I think Dominic alluded to that earlier. So basically, we have an edibles manufacturing where we make gummies, chocolates. We actually just launched a de-alcoholized beer as well. So that was really cool. That's really cool. And then we have our cultivation here in San Francisco. So it all flows through one.
Look at that, Dom. You can try the beer now, because Dom doesn't drink beer.
Yeah, we took a blonde.
Go ahead.
We took a blonde ale and a hazy IPA and de-alcoholized them.
If you can do it with the Zima, Dom's gonna be all over it.
I mean, there's beverages are really beverages are interesting, and it's a fast growing space as well. So again, there's lots of innovation coming. So like now you have groups that are not using distillate and using an emulsion, which the emulsion allows to bypass the liver, which allows for a faster action time, right? So you
get high
instead
quicker.
of it taking like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, when you take a gummy, you now can emulsify using emulsification, and that allows you to feel the effects within 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So again, there's what's been nice about recreation and the legalization is the innovation that's coming along with it, right? And I think a lot of it, and to be honest, I've had a bunch of people reach out to me who are like, dealing with chemo and not eating and all these other things, and I go and I get them gummies or whatever it is, and their appetite comes back. And for me, when I came into recreation, or when I came into this role, which I'm very thankful for, because it was really quite obviously came in with very little knowledge. I didn't really consume. And then I have access to some of the best experts in the country, or maybe even in the world, and really start to teach me about the product. You really, like, when you come to a cultivation, you really like, and you see the process of what the plant goes through, and you see, like, at the end when it's this beautiful budding thing, and like you really start to build and grow a respect for the plant itself. And for me personally, like, obviously coming into this and you can make money and all that stuff, what actually kind of changed my mind a little bit about what this can do and how it can help people was I decided to spend a week behind the counter with our patient consultants just to hear the interactions back and forth of people. And it was Army veterans coming in with tons of pain and anxiety and PTSD. wealthy individuals coming in saying that like I'm wealthy and but I have this like very scheduled, very busy life. My wife does too. This helps us relax. This helps us like stay connected to each other. You see other people coming in. I bought this for my mom who has cancer. I bought this, so moms and daughters are coming in, sons and fathers, right? Like now it's these dispensaries are not like kind of dingy, dark places that are not welcoming for you to go into. Now it's like open Whole Foods style looking dispensaries
Apple
where people
store,
can walk in, right? Yeah, that Apple store style feel where people can walk in, feel comfortable, get a consultation. So slowly but surely, I think we'll start making that progress. But for me, it was listening to these conversations of people and their and the ailments, or walking in, like I've heard coming into patient consultation, like what you recommended to me has really helped me in my life and my family's life. So anyway, not to belabor that point, but those were interesting things to see too, which obviously I think the recreational side and the use for enjoyment is obviously I think going to be what really drives this. But seeing those little things when I first started in the industry kind of made me like reset a little bit about, every once in a while somebody's coming in and you're helping them better their life, which gives you a little bit more of a purpose. So.
See, like I think I'd probably.
I love that.
Well, Dom, would you like? So I think because I've never really I'm not a smoker or anything like that, and I'm always, but I think I'd probably be. It's funny you come with all these different things, i.e. the beers and the edibles and things of that nature. It's funny. I'd probably consume a beverage versus the rest of the methods of consumption. My point being there is the fact that you'll probably end up seeing a lot of people who have reservations like myself. And because there's a myriad of ways to consume it, you probably will find greater adoption too, independent of the fact that people who already enjoy can find new ways of doing so. Just because, some methods are just more palatable, I guess.
Oh, I got an idea for you, Mark. Revolutionary. Ready for this?
Ready.
Put it in a beef burger.
Yeah, audience of one.
And we'll call it kaboom. We'll call it kaboom because kaboom beef burgers. They'll blow your mind. Right?
Yeah, blow your mind and your prostate. You'll feel like you.
Yeah, I'll look forward to those royalty checks.
That just sounds so horrible.
You worked out a lot, right? Like cannabis helps right after your sore, strenuous workouts. It helps relax your body. And,
no, I know a group of people who do the CBD. People take the CBD coffee and CBD teas and put the oil into this and that and the whatevers. Right. And I've had it once and felt nothing. And I don't know if you're supposed to either. Don't get me wrong. This is my ignorance, right? I assume you're
not supposed to feel anything.
Okay, so I felt zero. And I was like, man, these people are putting some droplets of water in this thing, calling it weed and charging me money for it. And I was very vexed.
You're doing CBD and not THC.
Yeah, CBD. The point of CBD is psychedelic effect and give you the relief that you need. So, for example, a lot of people take CBD during the workday when they have anxiety of some sort because they want to stay functional working. And they don't want the psychedelic feeling. So CBD is a good alternative for that.
Gotcha.
That being said, a lot of times companies, whatever the product is, will combine, let's say, like, for example, we have something called the Cbd Tropical Twist, which is it's a gummy that is 10 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of THC.
Tropical Twist, eh?
Yeah, that 2 to 1 is what allows for something called the entourage effect. So you get a little bit. You get the relief maybe from the CBD, and you get a little bit high, obviously from the THC. But the idea around CBD is to remove the psychedelic effect and just give you the anxiety or the relief anxiety relief or whatever relief it is that you're looking for, like tinctures or whatever, where you can rub it on the area, a cream that you can rub on the area that's affecting you or whatever.
Yeah, this is where I'm just generally ignorant to all this stuff, but. All right.
By the way, our cultivation grows, I think, what is supposed to be Bob Marley's favorite strain, which is lamb's bread. I don't know if that's you guys growing up in Jamaica. I assume that was a pretty popular strain?
Gotta tell you, no clue. No kaboom.
No, but hold. That's a good point. No, but I mean, did we even? I mean, it wasn't like back in the day. Not even back in the day. I think now in Jamaica, if you're buying some weed, you just straight up. I mean, now there's like dispensaries there, but for the longest time, ain't nobody know what you were getting. You're just getting. It was a dude in the corner who sold you whatever. That was your guy with the strain or whatever he had. Didn't matter. It was homie. It was Dreddy on the corner. You go to Dreddy, you buy some weed, you move on, and he'd roll it for you too if you wanted, which I always found very interesting. This man's got his tongue all over your issues, and he's rolling this joint. And you go, this is the best, and I'm like, yeah, I prefer to do it myself, but I don't know how. Yeah. Another reason I didn't get into it. But yeah, you just buy from dude in the corner.
As he's licking the paper,
completely. And he goes, oh, here you go. And they go, oh, I'll smoke that. And I was like, man, I don't know this guy. You know, this is pre-COVID. I can't even imagine it in a COVID time. You know, so I figured if I was going to do it, I got to learn, right? Think about it. So I figured if I had to do it, I had to learn how to roll the stuff, which I'm not learning how to do. That was so a lot of barriers to entry. That's one of my things where I never understood people who got into heroin either. Because I was like, man, you got to have apparatus to do heroin. I got to carry around a spoon.
That's why you don't understand heroin.
Never got it. Still don't get it.
After all this discussion we've been having, you've just brought heroin into a conversation.
Well, I'm just talking about the difficulties. I'm talking about the barriers to entry for drugs, right? And one would assume these were sufficient barriers to entry, but apparently not. People find these to be totally fine, and I'm saying for me, there were barriers.
But now you know. Now you realize those barriers are pretty much eliminated.
No, heroin still. I'm not carrying a spoon and a syringe around. I'm not doing that.
No, forget
and a lighter
heroin.
I don't even smoke.
No, we're talking weed. Not heroin.
No, but I mean, I don't need Dreddy in the corner to roll me a joint. You're right, I can get away with that. You know, and I can go. Apparently, I can feign a knee injury and get some weed from wherever in Florida, so I can make it work. But yeah, I guess again, I've just never dabbled, so I'm ignorant to all of it. So one day I'll have to give that a try out. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, let me know. I've
everything.
Always happy to help.
Everything.
Yeah, always happy to
okay,
help.
Dom's bringing the family into the mix. What's up, Braden? He can't hear us, obviously. Dom, he's got his headphones in. And now he just pushed his kid out the room.
He's like, get away.
He literally pushed his kid out the room.
But the barrier to entry now, of course, you like you mentioned, the edibles, the drinks, the flour, the pens, liquid. It's a lot easier than before learning how to roll yourself. Pre-rolls,
yeah, pre-rolls are
all those barriers are kind of
pre-rolls are a big segment now of the category because it's just so much easier to especially right if you're a beginner. I think it's a great way to start to understand what works for you and how to consume rather than having to do it yourself. And then as you start to get a little bit more advanced, but like even with the flower, like something that you guys should also consider too. Like now that I've been in this for the last 3 years, it's not much different than the wine industry. Like when you see experts start speaking about the flower itself, there's, certain strains that have a smell. Is it gassy? Is it this? Does it have a cheesy smell? Is it a lemon lime smell? This effect, that effect. It's really interesting to start, again, I've been very fortunate to be around some of the best experts there are, really discussing even when I bring people to the cultivation and they come see the plants, they're putting their nose to it. Like, how people take the grapes and do whatever. They're putting their nose to it. They're saying, oh, I can smell this. Oh, this strain is, oh, it's got this stickiness to it. Oh, look at the crystals. Like, it's really cool when you see all different kinds of folks coming in with different kinds of backgrounds in terms of even in cannabis, looking at a flower and what they enjoy about a particular strain or what they look for in general when they come into a cultivation or an outdoor facility. It's just like, let's not get away from the fact that, there is this there's this expertise kind of like you would have somebody in the wine industry, right? So
I was blown away by that. The knowledge.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When you go into the dispensary, it's wild.
It's great to see, right? Because especially as you have some, a lot of novices that come in, to be able to educate them right there and then, and start to help them understand what it is that they should be consuming, I think is great. And will hopefully, as the country starts to legalize, we can take this kind of become best practice, and other groups start to normalize that into their business plans.
Oh shit! Sorry. But, yeah, no, I'm going. Yeah, my bad. Hit the mic.
On a different note, I got another important question.
Sure.
why were you friends with him in high school? Was it a charity project? And if so, I applaud you because I knew he came from Jamaica. He literally had no friends. He was going through a weird phase. So if this was like a charity thing, it's very admirable of you to do something like that.
Yeah, he kind of just latched on like a backpack. And, but also,
and the same size as a backpack.
Yeah, but also I realized that, like, I think we had I loved reggae music growing up, and I was very much like hip hop I resonated with, and reggae music I loved it, but I didn't understand a word. So I was like, wait, this guy, I can understand him, and he can translate for me what these songs are saying, because at that time, right, the internet was very in its infancy, and we couldn't just go look up what lyrics meant. So it was nice to bring him along. It was, what, I have a lot more gray hairs because of raising this guy, as you can see. And it's funny you guys mentioned too the Saved by the Bell years, what you felt like the States were like. When I moved to San Francisco for grad school, I actually I'd never stepped foot in this city. And I had very much that Saved by the Bell thought process in the early, because I moved to San Francisco the first time in 2003.
Are you mixing up Saved by the Bell and Full House?
No, I literally was like, oh, California must be like this. So I'm gonna go to San Francisco, and then when I was moving here, my dad hit up one of his best friends growing up in Egypt who lives in the Bay Area, and he was like, my son is going to California. He knows nobody. He's going to a city he's never been to, and luckily he has like one friend. So he called the guy and was like, hey, my son is moving to San Francisco, and he's like, oh, let me speak to your son. He's like, Mark, you're coming to San Francisco? And I was like, yeah. He's like, have you ever been here? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, I'll tell you one thing. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
I told you, the weather is garbage.
And he hung up on me. And he just hung up on me. So I think I brought like one jacket. It was, climate change is for real. The weather is so different than it was in 2003 when I moved here. But yeah, it was a very cold city when I first moved here.
Temperature and people. Actually, no, the people are pretty awesome. I can't knock the people.
Easy.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna have that. But it's funny you mentioned Saved by the Bell years. I'm looking at Twitter right now. There is and I'm just gonna read it directly. People discover that Jensen Karp, the man who went viral after discovering what appears to be shrimp tails in a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, was once a rapper under the stage name Hot Carl and is married to Topanga, which is Boy Meets World, I know, but it's going back in that weird situation.
How does this have anything to do with this?
Yeah, what are you
we were talking about, we went, the sitcom things back in the day. Topanga was after. What do you mean after? Topanga was oh no, after Saved by the Bell, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Topanga came way later. But I just find it funny.
This is a completely random.
Completely. First of all, the man found shrimp tails in Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which, I've never even analyzed my cereal that much. I wouldn't even know if I'd find it my damn self, and I still enjoy Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't even know that this was this huge controversy until literally right now. Apparently, it's all the rage on the Twitter sphere. So, yeah, this just caught me off guard. But on that note, we've taken up a fair amount of Marc's time, and he's got to go and head to the airport because he's just a traveling man because he doesn't care about COVID, and he's jumping on planes like a madman over here. Actually, he loves
to do that.
I just got back in from LA on my damn self, but yeah. And Marc is actually fully vaccinated.
Yeah, fully vaccinated. I'm surprised there was no Jets discussion. Especially,
no, bruv, I can't. There's no point. The Jets aren't even worth talking about, man. And Dominic's an Eagles fan, even though there makes no sense at all. Dominic's an Eagles fan.
But funny enough, we have another episode we recorded recently with another individual who is a Jets season ticket holder.
It's funny, that individual and this individual are actually partners in the season tickets.
Yeah.
It can't be a hookup from this guy.
At the time when I was working at the Jets, these seats came open, and I'm like, this opportunity will never happen again. And I
turns out it would happen easily because nobody wants to go to Jets games, so it would have been available today as well. But
have you
no,
been in those
I'm playing. No, there's back. Now I'm with you.
They're phenomenal, but so we share the tickets together. It's been they're awesome. They're probably I think they're the best seats some of the best seats in the stadium.
Dom, have you even been to the Jets? Have you sat at the seats? Do you know what I'm talking about? The seats were at E-Pass?
No, I've seen guys pictures.
Yeah.
No, I've never.
No, it's dope. I mean, and so, we'll see what the world looks like again. Hopefully get back to the game. But yeah, Mark's actually the one that made that happen. So Mark's looking at his watch. He's got to get out of here. So Dominic, you had something to say?
Thank you very much. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you being a fan of the show, for the knowledge you've blessed us with here. We're going to look into the Last Prisoner Project.
Yeah, check that out.
I am hopeful. You gave me some confidence about, you mentioned, the incentives and what they're trying to do for helping other individuals who traditionally wouldn't be in a sector like this get involved. So that brings me some hope. And
yeah, we need more, but I like I said, some of the there's some cities that are implementing equity programs, and I hope we can implement more of that and keep iterating on it, right? Like the thing I feel like with a lot of these programs is we need to keep iterating and improving on them rather than just saying it's bad and this is why it's bad. It's like, okay, I think there's something good here. Let's fix what's wrong with it and then keep improving on these. I don't think we should look at these things any differently than we look at a business, right? If we don't improve on a business, it's going to go out of business. So I think we need to look at these policies the same way. Let's improve on them instead of just try to get rid of them.
Look at that, man.
Fair enough. And if you're in California, Amit, where should they get their product from in California? Can you pronounce it?
The Apothecarium. Come on now.
Yeah, there you go.
Boom. I know this.
Come visit us.
Exactly.
We also, we also have one in Pennsylvania. We have operations on the East Coast. So we're a we're a national corporation.
Can you send stuff in the mail legally? Do you got to go into the spots? I don't know. I don't know the game. I'm curious. That's hence the legal question I asked. I just asked. What do I
Federally
know?
illegal.
Big no.
Okay.
And that's a big kaboom no.
That is a huge. You're crossing state lines.
All right. Noted.
All right, fellas.
All right.
All right, Jen.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you again, Mark.
Bye.